The power of a reframe. It's a bit of an odd one for me to write about this, but I think it is relevant, so bear with me. If you've followed me for a while, you might have heard me talk about my dodgy hip that I've had since birth. And if you've seen me out and about, you probably know that I walk with a limp that I've had since childhood. And if you spent any time with me at all, you'll know that I'm usually in some kind of pain with my back or my knees. And I'm very restricted with my standing and my walking. And some days I'm better than others. I carry a folding walking stick with me all the time when I'm outside of the house. I can potter about indoors at home okay. But when I'm out, it's in and out of my bag like a jack in a box. And any trips that I have, anywhere I go, I have to really think carefully about where I'm going to park, how far I'm going to need to walk, how long I'm going to need to be on my feet, and so on. So everything's kind of like micromanaged because I can't be on my feet for too long without being in pain. And also the day after as well, I usually have to rest. I'm sort of pay for it the day after. So I'm quite achy a lot of the time. And I've had quite a lot of surgery over the years. I'm no stranger to crutches. I do find them easier to walk with, but they're just very cumbersome. They're not as handy as my stick. I've covered them in leopard print sticky back plastic so they don't look as hospital-y. But prior to having my hip replaced in January 2011, I relied on heavy-duty painkillers every day. I was on 8 cocodamol a day, plus diclofenac anti-inflammatory drugs. And that was just to sort of help me get through. It didn't take the pain away, but it did help me get through because I'd got bone-on-bone pain. I was absolutely terrified of surgery, and that's the story for another day. But so park all that. Anytime I go to the doctors, whatever it's with, I'd say 9 times out of 10 they mention my weight. They talk to me about saying that, I've got a bad knee, or it's probably losing some weight would help. And I've struggled with my weight for as long as I can remember, really. The first time I thought I was fat, or I was told I was fat by, or the message I got was that I was fat, was I wasn't very old at all. I was in my teenage years, and I've just got heavier and rounder with age. When I look back, I wasn't actually fat at all. But I've got heavier and rounder with age, and I've now got obese formally recorded on my medical records, so they bring it up whenever they can. And I've spoken a lot about my self-esteem being affected by my weight. I won't go into lots of detail, but I have felt quite desperate at times and tried every diet under the sun. The last stop is my GP's offered me bariatric surgery because my BMI is high enough to qualify for bariatric surgery, which is not really what I want to do for a whole variety of reasons. And in the past, I've been really, really unkind and not very compassionate towards myself. I've journaled about it in the past, and I've described myself as being fat and defective. So I've done a lot of work to get me to where I am today, but obviously I have still got more work to do. I'm aware of that. But the reason I'm sharing this now is because it's how I feel about myself and my self-worth, and it's all part of my baggage, which helps me to have compassion and empathy when I work with people in my capacity as a personal style and brand mentor. Now, particularly since COVID, I've found my world getting smaller and smaller. And there's been a whole host of contributory factors. I was stuck inside all the time when everybody was going out for walks, and you could meet up with people and go for a walk. That wasn't something I was able to do. All my mates were going out for a walk and managed to keep in touch that way. Whereas I was sort of stuck at home. I had a couple of friends who came along and sat at the end of my pavement on we sat on deck chairs and had a chat. But that was about it, really. So I felt excluded. I felt left out. And then also my husband, he got made redundant just after COVID. And so when he's at home, he does the shopping. So he started doing all the shopping. So that was something I didn't even need to do. I didn't even need to go to Aldi. All the business networking, all the meetings that I used to have with people in real life, going out for lunch once or twice a week, all that stopped and everything became online. And I was really grateful that my business was online, and I'd made that move prior to COVID, because it meant that I managed to keep my business afloat. But what it did mean is that over the past 3 years or so, I've gone out less and less, and my world's got smaller and smaller. And it got to a point last year where I'd got this opportunity to go to something, and I almost didn't go because I was worried about where I was going to park, and I was starting to get quite anxious about it all and feeling quite nervous about going out, and sort of lost my confidence. Now, I think some of it was menopause, but also I don't think the COVID effect helped either. But the impact of that, of me not going out, means that my mobility has got less. I'm less mobile than I ever was. I have also gained weight because I went on HRT to help me with my menopause symptoms, and that sort of seems to have given me a bit more of a weight dump. So it's this sort of self-perpetuating circle. So I've tried Pilates, I've tried swimming, I've tried yoga, but all of those things seem to be making my back worse rather than better. I'd be suffering for 2 or 3 days after each session. So I was doing it because I was hoping it would make me feel better and help me with my mobility, and actually it was making me worse. Now, I've recently found out that I've got, on top of my hip problem, I've got a slip disc and nerve impingement. So that's probably why. So I'm waiting to see a consultant about that. But anyway, earlier this year, I spoke up. I voiced my concerns about my world getting smaller to a couple of friends and to my husband, and I just didn't like the idea of becoming a hermit. And I think also getting older as well, thinking, oh, how long have I got left? Sounds a bit morbid, but these are the kind of things that you start thinking about as you hitting, I'm 59 now, I'm 60 next year, and it's the sort of stuff you start thinking about. So I went on a couple of trips with their help. We sort of did a few things, we planned some things, and they were really understanding and happy to sort of take my concerns on board and make inclusive plans with me, which was brilliant. Now, and then over the past year or two, as my mobility has been decreasing, I've been thinking about, do I need a mobility scooter? Do I need a wheelchair? My only experience of having a mobility scooter was once I'd had my hip replaced. I went to Sainsbury's with my sister and we borrowed one with a basket on, and I've been umming and ahhing about it, but then kind of thinking, no, it's not. It just doesn't feel right for me psychologically. It doesn't feel right. It's sort of, it doesn't feel like it would be liberating. It feels like it would be more sort of giving in. And also the sort of whole point of an ambulatory wheelchair as well. Little Britain, that bloody sketch thing, has a lot to answer for, and I don't want somebody to have to push me around either. It's sort of, that feels like it's leaving my independence behind. So psychologically, they both feel like a step too far, and in my head, I think I'd feel more disabled and then things feeling more accessible. So I'm sort of in this limbo land. But last week I started a new chapter, and I'm hoping that my world's going to be opened up and it's going to make getting around easier, which is hence this blog, because I went to an amazing 2-day event a few months, end of September it was, and it was full of wonderful people who I really wanted to chat with. But the problem was, in between the conference bit, everybody was standing around chatting at break times and having cups of tea and standing around chatting, and I had to keep going sitting down because my back was hurting. I couldn't stand up. So I felt like I was missing out, and I wanted to be, I did still really enjoy it, but I feel like I could have enjoyed it more. So when the host, Danny, announced that she was doing another one next year in March, I thought, well, I've got to be there. I've sponsored a table actually, and I'm taking some of my Fab Business Club members with me. So I'm really excited about that. But also I was thinking, right, I need to find a way of me not having FOMO about the networking stuff. So last week, and I ended up having a chat with Danny about something else, but I was given this amazing reframe. She gifted me this amazing reframe, and she suggested that I needed a wandering throne. So one of those walking things that have got a seat on it so you can sit down whenever you want. And she's like, yeah, and you can pimp it up with glitter and flamingos, and you can, accept people to come to your throne and speak to you. And it just sort of blew my mind. All of a sudden, it seemed exciting, and it captured my imagination, and I could see how actually it was a solution. So a few hours later, did a bit of research, and a few hours later, and then Paul, before I knew it, Paul had ordered me this like funkiest, lightest one that we could find, and it arrived last Wednesday. And all of a sudden I'm like excited about being able to go just for like a simple thing like a walk around the park again, or to go shopping, looking around the shops without having to, you know, being really limited to an hour at a time maximum. So it's something I've not done for years, and I'm really hopeful that it is going to open my world back up. So the relevance of all this is about me making strides, like literally, and not caring what people think, not being embarrassed or ashamed of not being able to do what other people can do, and seeing myself as worth it. And it's not about me being fat and having issues because of that, you know, thank you, doctor. It's about much more than a walk around the park. It feels very liberating, and it's another layer of my onion being revealed. So I just want you to think about what deep-rooted things might be holding you back from living your best life, and what can you do about it?